So coming in today, one of the last emails I got was, please connect your message with the mission statement and the core values of Maranatha. And I thought, okay. So I just went into the mission statement and core values and just started to make notes about, based on those core values, what as parents is our role or ways that we can partner with what Maranatha has identified as core values and the reasons likely why you have your children here. How can we as parents partner at home with those core values so that we're marching in lockstep in raising this generation, right? So it's wonderful to see that Maranatha is doing all the, anybody read those core values lately? No? Yeah? Yeah. So it's really good. Take a look at them. They're awesome. The way they're written is really awesome. It's really real. And so, like I said, I just kind of went through and I've got a couple of notes based on the core values. So if you haven't read them for a while, I'm gonna review them for you so you can be thoughtful and know what it is that Maranatha's foundation, as they build curriculum and programming around, that these are the foundations, and then what can we do as parents. So first core value that I'm going to speak to is spirit-driven leaders, and I'm going to speak to how do we as parents raise leaders? What is it that we can do and not do to foster and facilitate leadership in our children? Knowing that all of our kids have different personalities, right? We're not gonna always have your, Enneagram 8, outgoing, type A kind of a person. We need to have all kinds of different leaders. We need to have quiet leaders. We need to have leaders who fill in support roles, but do it from a leadership perspective. And how do we foster that in our children? And one of the big things that has just been, over the last 5 to 10 years, it's been a big topic with parenting, is the whole concept of helicopter parenting. That as parents, this generation, because the thought is because the previous generation just kind of said, figure it out, that we swung to the other side of the pendulum and our overfunction, we call it overfunctioning, because we are overfunctioning parents. Because we want our kids to know you don't have to just figure it out. We're there for you. But what happened is we took it too far and we ended up swooping in, rescuing our kids from problems and situations that our kids need to plow through themselves. And so what we find is that I've got an office full of kids who don't know how to handle difficulty and problems. They see a problem and it's a hard stop rather than a challenge for them to move through. And they don't trust themselves. They don't know how to listen. And they don't know how to, if what they've heard as one of their ideas to problem solve, they don't know how to test that out. How to listen to what we know as the voice of the Holy Spirit happening on the inside of them, learn how to discern that and make some decisions, act, take risks. And so as parents, helping our children to take risks, obviously, balanced risks, like we don't let them go play in the freeway, but let them get out there and make some plans that might fail, to take some steps. They might get embarrassed. They might not be successful. It might take a few shots at it. We had, I'm trying to remember what it was. Deb, you might remember it. We had some kids who did a petition for something, and it might have been either gum chewing or wearing gray. I can't remember what it was. But it was a problem because way back when, gum chewing was not allowed and wearing gray was not allowed, right? The rules have changed a lot. So it was gum chewing. And that was it, the logos. Okay, so problem, right? So as leaders, instead of whining about the problem or going, oh well, and then just bad-mouthing the school, they went about developing a petition. They met with administration, they had the students sign it, and they then presented their argument in a very logical, well thought out way, very respectful, and they were making change in a way that was risky. They might have been turned down, but they problem solved with it. So it's one of the things that I think about when I think about letting our kids experience some risk and letting them figure out how to solve problems and do it in a way that, that will translate to the world. The other thing that I think we do way too much, and this is another thing that we hear about too in our probably the last 5 to 10 years, is we rave way too much about our children. We are way too loud of cheerleaders, and that's not to say that we shouldn't be cheerleaders for our children. We absolutely need to be cheerleaders for our kids, but we are giving them way too many ribbons, way too many participation trophies, way too many attaboys, way too many you're awesomes, way too many. And our kids get a false sense of self-esteem, or that they're good at things, and the actual development of that feeling of self-confidence and self-esteem is stepping into things and being able to use their gifts and talents in a way that is adaptive and constructive, fail a few times, and then be able to get up, make sense of the failure, and try again. These are the things that we need to be celebrating our children for, how they handle mistakes, how they handle failure. Not, you're so awesome all the time. That's empty. It's not attached to anything. So what would be my suggestion for parents? Attach your praise to character. Don't attach your praise to grades. Don't attach your praise to being the captain of the team. Don't attach your praise to behaviors. Attach it to character. The way you were honest about that situation really, really was amazing. It must have been hard to tell the truth. The way you got up when you were knocked down just showed me a kind of strength that was just something really cool to say. So think about that. When you're raving about your kids, rave about character, not about behavior. We don't share our past mistakes enough. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I think some of us share too much of it and some of us don't share enough. So it's kind of a self-reflect and kind of check in with yourself. But share your mistakes. Let your kids know that you haven't done it all right either. I just had one of these opportunities with my oldest child. She just ran into a really big issue. She made a couple mistakes. She's in a hole, and she came to me for some thoughts and some advice, and I shared with her almost the exact same thing I did when I was her age, and it was helpful to her. She didn't know that I had gone through the same thing, and so it fostered some really good communication, and some just kind of joining with her of it. This doesn't feel good, does it? And that was really, really cool. So there's ways for us to share our mistakes in an age-appropriate way that help our children. This is one that I think we see a lot and we don't talk about a lot. We mistake intelligence, giftedness, and influence for maturity. This we see everywhere. We see it in pop culture. We see it in sports figures. We see it in music and entertainment industry. We see celebration of giftedness and influence, of charisma, but we mistake it for maturity. And then we see people on platforms that do not have the integrity, the character, the strength of character to hold on to that leadership. And they're making decisions that are just not good, right? And so in our children, we want to be able to discern between the two. If I have a child who is really, really intelligent, I don't want to mistake that for, oh yeah, and they can get out there and handle life really well. Maturity and intelligence are very different things. Giftedness and intelligence are very different things. So be thoughtful of that when you're thinking about your children and what is the difference between the two. Maturity is developed. Giftedness is given. Right? So, and that's wonderful. We need to be happy about the giftings that we have, and giving honor where honor is due, right? I didn't sign up for this. I just have it plunked into me, and that's awesome. Thank you. Now, what do I do with it? And so, keeping that in mind with your kids. I'm getting stuck on the first one. Second one, impactful innovators. This is the one where if you've ever been anywhere or been here and heard me speak, you've probably heard this 5 to 20 times. Developing curiosity in our children is a really, really big goal for us as parents. And what is the phrase that you keep in your mind all the time? Ask, don't tell. Ask, don't tell. Develop a little mini counselor inside of yourself. We do it, I do it all day long, so I'm well practiced, and it's not fair. I can easily, like, people will say, well, how do you do that? And I can come up with 15 questions because it's what I do all day long. And it's easy for me to sit in front of somebody and not get stuck on asking questions just because I've practiced it for so many years. But as parents, you may not have that practiced. And I think our default as parents is we tell our kids what to do. We tell our kids where they went wrong. We tell our kids what we think they should do. And what that does is it makes our kids look for answers primarily out here. And that can be really problematic. There needs to be a balance. We need to have our children to be able to reflect internally, again, the Holy Spirit speaking, curiosity and creativity speaking, and to be able to then voice those ideas out in a safe space, hopefully at home, and then for us to kick those things around. But if we're constantly solving our children's problems by telling them what to do, we've shut that down. And I can't even tell you how many 18 to 20 somethings I have had come through my office over the years. Just, I mean, ongoing all the time. I have a bunch of them on my caseload right now. They have no self-confidence. They have no ability to listen to their own answers, give it a shot, be willing to fail. They're listening. There's, Amy, what would you do? Well, Amy, what should I do? Well, Amy, what skill should I use? Well, Amy, what choice should I make? It's like, that's not my job. If I tell you the answers to that, you're going to be showing up here forever, as long as I'm in practice. You're going to be overly reliant on me. I need you to take some chances to listen. What if I'm wrong? We'll tackle that when you get there. Well, because you probably will be a few times, and that's okay. And I have, some of them get real mad, and some of them cry. But as parents, we can start that process way earlier before they get to me. Hopefully they never get to me. That would be the goal, right? My goal is always working myself out of a job. So ask, don't tell, ask, don't tell. And if that doesn't come natural, which it probably doesn't, practice. There's a really fun game out there. It's not really fun for most of you, but it's fun for me. And it's it's the question game. Have you ever played that? Where you have to ask a question back and forth to a person. So they ask you a question and you ask a question back, and they ask you a question and you ask it. And it's all questions back and forth. And the person that can't come up with the question, they lose. And so that would be one that you could practice with your spouse or with somebody else to kind of get that whole mindset going, because that's what we want to be doing. Questions for your kids. I'm going to skip to the last one because I think I'm on time here. Let's see, open-ended question. We don't practice what we preach. This is one I hear all the time too. So I just want to reiterate this one for us as parents. Hypocrisy, our kids have like spidey senses for hypocrisy. And, you know, we all do, right? So make sure, and this is something also that in my office is a really big topic. So I'll have a lot of people say, yeah, this is what I think I'm going to do. You think? This is what I'm going to try. You're going to try? So I have this exercise where I have a pen and I throw it on the floor and I say, okay, try to pick that up. And they'll lean down. I go, no. Try to pick that up. And they're like, exactly. Don't use your words to satisfy an idea of what you want to do. This is happening way too much in our world. Do the thing or don't do the thing. Have the Yoda, what is that? There is no try, there is only do, or something like that. Yeah. Do or don't, you're right. Behavior speaks. We want our children to be reading the behaviors of other people. This is the demonstration of that person's character and integrity, not their words. It's the same for us. So allow our behavior to speak. If we're saying one thing and doing another, and our kid brings that up, listen to them. Have some humility. Say, you know what, you're right. I need to pay attention to that. And then have your actions be the primary way that you are communicating to your children your values and your beliefs, in the same way that we do that with the world. We have way too many mouths in the world saying way too many words with not enough action that is demonstrating or backing up those words. And so we want to foster that in our children. And the way we do that is we start with ourselves. And the way that we figure out how we're not doing it is to be humble enough to let them tell us. And that can be hard, but it's a really good learning curve. So I have probably 15 other points, but I think I'm out of time. So I am going to wrap it up. Any thoughts or feedback or question? Yeah.
Besides lack of self-confidence, is there a common thread that you find in students and people that you hear a lot of? Again, second question is, do you find that there are a lot of kids that are on medication for anxiety, depression?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, what's a common thread with lack of self-confidence, self-esteem? And I'll speak to that in a moment. And then the second part of the question was, do I see a lot of kids and teenagers on medications? I'll just speak to the medications part of it. The vast majority. Now, are medications good and helpful? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we want to look at medications as another coping strategy when things are really hard and I don't know how to get traction to get my mood regulated. Medication can be a wonderful helping tool. And so we don't want to demonize medication, but we also don't want to look at medication as the solution to the problem, an all-encompassing solution. It's always something in the middle. And so yes, our children are on a lot of medication. I could be up here for hours talking to you about lifestyle, screens, food, relational dynamics, all of these things that are feeding into anxiety and depression. Mood is way more than thoughts. It's body, and we're feeding our bodies really poorly in our generation. And so that has a lot to do with it. So yes, lots of medication. And then the second thing, the self-esteem, self-confidence. Self-confidence comes from trying, failing, succeeding. Self-confidence comes from action that produces outcome that the child wants, or maybe didn't know, but is good, right? Self-esteem doesn't come from trophies and attaboys and raves and all of that. That does not produce self-esteem. One of the common thread that I hear and the way that I go about the self-confidence issue is I go a self-compassion route. And I'll just quickly kind of give you a synopsis on that. The terror downer of self-confidence for all of us and our kids is the internal critic. That is the number one terror downer of self-confidence. And all of us have an internal critic that is constantly tearing us down, telling us, shaming us, belittling us, criticizing us. And so teaching children and adults about the internal voice of self-compassion. The way that we would talk to other people is the way that we need to be talking to us. I tell people about this example way back when, for those of you who don't know, I'm an addict. So I went through treatment 22 years ago. And Chris Callison, who is no longer with us, gave me an assignment that I will never forget. He used to call me Shamey because my baseline was shame. And he said to me, you have an assignment, you have one of two choices. You can either talk to so at that time my oldest was 5, I think. You can either talk to your child, your oldest, Courtney, the way you talk to yourself. So he had me make a list of the phrases that I use to myself internally. I didn't know this is where he was going with it, so I was pretty honest with the phrases. So he said, you can either use these phrases on your child, or you can use the way you talk to your child on yourself. You can pick one or the other, but those are your options. And it completely changed the way my internal dialogue was. The things that I said to myself, I would never let out of my mouth, much less say to my child. And yet I felt just fine of using those on myself. And so developing an internal self-compassionate, firm, obviously firm. If you make a mistake, we need to be firm with ourselves, but gentle. So I have a phone full of little voice messages every single day. I probably get 10 to 15 of them because my clients, if you come in and see me, a very common homework item is, when you make a mistake, I want you to think about how you respond to that mistake as if you are responding to one of your best friends or a child. And then I want you to voice record what you would say to that person in response to the mistake you made. Voice record it and then send it to me, accountability. And so I have people sending me voice recordings of their their responses in a compassionate and loving way to themselves, externalized but sent to me. It's a game changer. So self-compassion, huge. The internal critic is tearing us all down, it's tearing our kids down, and it's a way for us to start to rebuild the confidence in who we are. So thank you for that question. I should probably wrap it up because it's going to go long here, but thank you so much.